Welcome to Circle of Hearts Radio. Journey with Grandmother Allayah as she enters her magical world of relics, sacred sites, and ancient crystal skulls. Meet with exciting trailblazer authors and individuals shifting the consciousness of humanity. Send her your questions to be answered on air on her monthly segment, Ask the Oracle. And now your host, Grandmother Allayah, in the sanctuary on the airwaves on OMTimes Radio.
And mind of a very, very interesting person. And when we start, I'd like you to sit back and everything that you thought you knew, I would like you for this 1 hour just to cancel it, to open your minds and just to listen. And also, now or during the break, I'd like you to get pen and pencil, take some notes. And also, I'm going to give you Timothy Wyllie's website, www.timothywyllie.com, because the site is so filled with information that if you're drawn to this show, I'd like you to, check it out. The books, the artwork, the music. He seems like he's ahead of his time, but the whole thing is, if you say that time is really continuous and we go into multi-dimensions, to me, Timothy is a portal or a lens, and he's bringing through this information that we need to open our minds to in the now. And it's very deep. I know I've spent a lot of months reading his books, looking at his website, looking at his articles, and my brain is fried. I have so much information going on in here that I've spent the past few nights. How am I going to present him and his works? And basically, I've gone the idea of, I want you to get to know him. And then you do the work if you're interested. Go to his site, check out his works, and see what draws you. As we started, I had always, when I was thinking of Timothy, I was thinking of portal and lens. And this morning I went to his website and I saw this one quote that he had put on there. He goes, "After all, when we know who we really are, when the knowledge of our own nature is no longer blurred by amnesia, then the lens through how we perceive the world, the multiverse and anything and everything else will clarify, and the deeper meaning of our redemptive purpose of lives will be revealed." So again, I saw the word lens, so I figure I can't be too far off. Timothy is an author of many books. He is a published writer. He is an artist. And he is a musician. Amazing man. Amazing. And I had promised Timothy I wasn't going to give him the standard introduction, so I hope he's happy with what we're going to start with. Are you there, Timothy?
Indeed, I am. Thank you so much. What a sweet thing to say.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, it's true. A lot of times on social media, you see the statement, if you could spend several hours on a bench talking to somebody, who would you choose? Last year for me, it was Mother Teresa. This year, it's you. So let's get started on the beginning, and then we're just gonna fly with it and see where things take us. Let's start with when you incarnated. You came in as pretty much a normal soul with many challenges until your near-death experience.
Yeah. Yes, I was born in 1940, and I have, and just as the war was, getting really awful, and I have thought to myself, I wonder why I chose to do that. And of course, many years later, I now understand, that I had to really go through really, really vigorous and violent experiences very early in my life in order to sort of get my emotional body going. Because I think when I came in, and for quite a long time afterward, my emotional body was pretty stuck. And I think possibly what happened is that in my kind of late teens, I started realizing how messed up I was, how screwed up I was. And that sort of, in a sense, forced me into a situation of self-examination. Mm-hmm. And I think, in many ways, catastrophe or calamity or very harsh, difficult situations do have a very positive side, which is they really wake one up, and they make one pay attention and sort of dig deeper into oneself and also into the nature of life. Because life certainly isn't about getting up, going to work, having dinner, having a kid, and then dying. I mean, that's not really what life is about. It's aspects of life, but it's not the center of life.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, I noticed it brought you up to that point, but what exactly happened that led you to the ND, where near-death experience or near-life experience? Where did you hit bottom so much that, it was almost like a soul contract that says, okay, we have to get serious here. Are you going to come back, make a choice, come back, or just reincarnate again?
Yes, it was a very interesting near-death experience. It was one of those ones that kind of went all the way. Near-death experience is kind of incremental in a sense. Some people just get out of their bodies and they're in the hospital and they're looking around and they get scared and they go back in their bodies. Mine went all the way. One of the two very interesting things came out of it. One was that when I was addressed by the being of light, he told me that I had accomplished, I had done what I had come to do. Of course, that really blew my mind because I had no idea that, something we come to do. We all have a very specific function and a very specific role to play. But then he said they were giving me the choice. I could continue, and it was such a wonderful, it's so ecstatic and wonderful. They were very tempting to continue. Or they said, well, you can come back if you want. And what got me back was that I really didn't know what would happen if I got back, my curiosity what got me. Because when I was out there, it was also extraordinarily wonderful that I knew it was just going to keep on getting more wonderful. And it wasn't going anywhere, it's going to be there when I die. So I thought, I'll come back. And of course, when I came back, I was completely changed. From a rather cynical young man. I was an architect. Kind of hard-hearted, I guess. I came back and I was completely different. I believe. I met angels. I was, how can you not believe in angels when you meet them? And I was healed out there as well, which is a very strange idea that one can be healed in an out-of-the-body state of what one is suffering from within the body, because I was dying. The being of light said, yeah, you are dying. You confirmed my suspicion. So...
I was going to say, do you think that, like you said, as a young man, you were very cynical. Do you think having this experience brought to your mind or to your consciousness or validation, all right, there's angels, there's non-human life forms out there?
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely. When I say I was cynical, I was, I guess, skeptical, probably best. I was cynical when I was in my teens, and then skeptical in my 30s. And yeah, certainly the near-death experience completely blew that apart. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, when I hear scientists, making the claims that these things can't exist, it's kind of, if they had the experience, they wouldn't say that. They just simply haven't had the experience. They've had different experiences. And they should talk about them because they know about them. But, they shouldn't talk about with any authority about experiences they haven't had. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I find many men, I mean, aren't open to angels unless you go into a religious path. I know in about a minute we're going to be heading into, a break, but I'd like, pursue that more later. Exactly, I've learned so much about angels, what I thought they were, and then after reading all your information, boy, what an eye opener.
Well, of course, it is a little more complicated, than the standard idea of sort of guardian angels, flickering around. The best way of kind of approaching it is to understand that the universe is essentially kind of divided into two. We're in the outer worlds, right, of the sort of the three dimensions of the outer world, and the extraterrestrials are in the outer worlds. But there are the inner worlds that we can contact through our imaginations, right? And the inner worlds are the worlds of the angels, and they basically kind of are the they kind of take care of everything from the inside. They're not exactly, they don't take over. We, the ones in this reality, are the ones that make the changes and grow up. They're basically here just to sort of push us very gently in the right direction.
All right, well, keep that thought, and we'll continue after this break.
Okay.
The future of internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Okay, so I will keep saying during this show for everybody just to, open their minds and listen, being discerning, take what feels right to you at this point of your spiritual development and let, anything else, let it go. But he makes what his work opens your mind to is, let's take the definition of angels and forget the religious connotations. Let's see them as non-human life forms that, from what I'm gathering, they come here to support us emotionally and guide us. Does that make sense, Timothy?
Yes, yes. I mean, guardian angels, or we actually prefer to call them companion angels, because in a sense there's nothing really left to guard against, because we're all working on the same side at this point. We're all, working towards, global transformation of one sort or another. So, guardian angels, are one aspect of a much, much larger scenario, because they're angels of the future, they're angels of the churches, they're angels of this, they're angels of that. They're kind of an organizing principle, I think, is probably the best way of understanding them. Now, you see, the problem is, in a sense, is that, of course, we are in a spiritual situation. We are spiritual beings, learning how to be human. There's no avoiding the spiritual. And I think, one of the difficulties, for instance, with artificial intelligence, is that they don't, they only account for physical intelligence. But of course, there are three other different kinds of intelligence: the emotional intelligence, the intellectual intelligence, and the spiritual intelligence. And we all contain these intelligences. But some people focus on one, and some people focus on another. The ideal, of course, is to bring them all into balance. So one is, spiritually authentic, and one is thinking, in the correct way, and one's behavior is correct. One is, treating people well, and one has one's life together. That's the ideal state, rather than sort of emphasizing, the spiritual. Also is difficult. If one overemphasizes the spiritual, one can, of course, get out of touch with what's really going on a sort of three-dimensional sort of level. So it's quite a challenge. But that's why we incarnated, at this particular point, because it's such an important point in human history. It really is a turning point.
That's why I was wondering. I had forgot to ask. Right, so these segments go so fast. When I listen to your interviews, often I hear you say about your NDE or other people's near-death experience or the death experience period and coming back. Make the right decision. Do you think your soul's decision? I mean, I'm even confused about souls anymore. Your decision was to provide information during this critical mass awakening, to put the information out there, and when people are ready, they will find it?
Well, yes, I think probably, looking back in retrospect, yes, I think that probably was what was behind it all. But what is interesting is one has to really proceed on a sort of day-by-day basis. You can't sort of make future plans, because, those are expectations. And when we have expectations, of course, we have to prove they're wrong. So it's much more a question of really trusting one's own good nature as well as one's angels to guide one into situations that are productive for as many people as possible. And I guess, I consider myself an artist. I don't consider myself an author or writer, even though I've got 8 or 10 books out there. They were kind of a sideline, because my art and my near-death experience took me into this larger realm that we all inhabit, because we inhabit an inhabited multiverse. It's a very well organized system. It's not this chaos that scientists point to. That's just on one particular level. It's a much better organized, highly organized situation. And of course, because we're on a very important little planet, for all sorts of very curious reasons, we're attracting a lot of extraterrestrial and angelic help at this point.
I think, honestly, your work helps. I mean, I've seen on social media, I read the social medias, to kind of keep tabs on where people, their consciousness are going. And they, people are finally at the point of saying, okay, I'm different. I don't know why. There's more to it, but everyone's searching for information. I know you say you're not a writer per se. That's not totally the thing, but I think you have mentioned you're not a channel. So, but through the written word, you provide, again, that word lens into the multiverse. You open minds. I mean, you're providing information to make people think. So that's really important because people seek answers and they get so far and then they're stymied.
Yeah.
Okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
So your books, from what I see, provide that step. I did not. I mean, I thought I had a handle on what's going on. Boy, did I learn differently. I've opened my mind to more, and I'm seeing things more as an expanded version. But your works provide that, and so does your art, and especially your music. I mean, I've listened to some of those, clips, and it's like talking from source here. I mean, if we consider everything as oneness and part of us as source, when you listen to it, it really opens your mind even further. I'm sorry, but that's why I say you're unique. It must be hard to be in this world.
Thank you. It's just an interesting situation, isn't it? Because, I mean, we're all talking about how polarized our societies are becoming, and it's not just in this country. I mean, I was just listening to something about Poland, which has been a wonderful sort of success story from the Western point of view, and suddenly it's now sort of going all sort of right wing again. So there's this situation I think we're all in, where we're being pulled one way or another, and it's very much dependent on how much we know of ourselves. For instance, if we have a lot of suppressed anger and suppressed violence, then that's going to be coming out right now. And of course, we live in a very violent society, and we live in a society, almost governed by fear of one sort or another. So, a lot of this polarity is due to these sort of unconscious stuff coming up to the surface. Now, from one point of view, it looks dreadful, when we see people killed on the streets and everything. But from another point of view, if what life is about is finding out who we are, then part of finding out who we are is finding out our true nature. And our true nature is buried under this sort of silt of sort of, the acclimatization, customization, all the sort of programs we've accepted as we've grown up. Our true selves lie underneath that. So we have to sort of produce these situations which look very horrible in order to galvanize ourselves and bring this energy to the surface so it can be released. It's just like a boil on the skin. It's the poisons in the body coming out. It's the poisons in the world mind coming out right now, because we have been under this hideous situation for over 200,000 years. We've been isolated and in this very, very almost condemned situation, which we're just kind of fighting our way out of right now. So the idea is basically to be able to get to the point where this internal stuff has come out, it's been accepted, and we move into this new frame so we can look at the situation, like what happened in Paris recently, and we can empathize rather than sympathize. Okay, empathy is understanding. Sympathy is saying, oh my God, if I was in that situation, how horrible it would be. And we can basically empathize with both parties, with with the people who were killed, but also the people who attacked, because they also are working towards a resolution. They may be doing it in a horrible way, but we're all working towards this resolution. And that's where this compassion comes in. One can feel compassion for people who are doing this in this very hard, difficult, stupid way. But, they're human beings.
I believe that's a very important point, and I'm glad you brought that out, because I always felt that the horror of the world is like a contract on a larger scale. They say, well, we're going to keep on we're going to keep on showing all this horror until people get it.
Yes, until we wake up.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
exactly. And I think, you see, in this country right now, in spite of this ridiculous sort of, thing that's going on with the right wing, I think at this particular point there are more of us who have woken up to a limited extent, to a greater extent, than who are still asleep. And I think that's why, we've just sort of tilted over the edge, well, on the home stretch, put it that way.
Well, that's good to, really know, because it sounds like and I'll have you explain what multiverse, a small summary is on the next segment, that if we look at this on a larger scale, it seems that, like you said, we're lifting those veils, and people are having a hard time with it, but with enough people coming out and say, hey, look, you have to have some badness to finally understand what's happening and change your thoughts. All right, we'll be back.
Okay.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network, bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
We're back with Timothy Wyllie, and again, if you are really interested in the ascension process and what is happening in your own enlightenment, go to www.timothywyllie.com. There is a great deal of information there. We can't even touch upon so many things, but I have the feeling things are being brought up that need to be brought out today. Now, many of us talk about, we're starting to recognize that we're spirit and form, but it never clicked on me until I read your works about calling ourselves non-humans, which we really are. It's the same. Maybe it's the newer version of spirit and form. It's we need to look at ourselves different. We realize many of us have come onto this planet and is starting to need to understand it. I mean, Timothy, who are we?
Well,
I mean, in short.
In short, yeah, that's never asked me in short. Well, yes, I mean, planets are basically made for people. We're on what's called a third dimension planet, and there are a lot of these first-dimensional planets all over the place. It's where basically souls are growing, right? I mean, we're given a soul in a sense as the bit of us that continues after we die. That's the bit that essentially continues. It absorbs, the experiences that have gone on in life. After we die, we have our assessment, if you like. We have the chance to experience aspects of our life, perhaps not so pleasant, and we have the chance to experience them as the other person that we have negatively affected as well. So we have that sort of situation, and then after that, obviously, we continue. It's not just straight to heaven, though, as the Christians believe. It's a pretty long trek. It takes a lot to get out of even this rather small aspect of the universe. So I think the best way of regarding a soul, actually, is to realize that we are eternal beings. We just go on and on. Some of us have gone on and on before we've come here, and some of us have been created here, and then go on and on. It's no great thing to have gone on and on before and then be dumped here, because this is such an intense learning planet. I think probably I started thinking, what on earth have I done to deserve being put down here? So I think that's probably quite an active access point, to finding out who we are. Yes, you were saying?
Yeah, from much of my learning, and I've seen it repeated a lot. They say we're a facet, like with these little blips. Souls are little blips of source that we were, so we can experience. The source can experience.
Yeah.
But then I had come up with the question. This was always bothering me. Who created source? This has always stymied me. I've gone to the point, okay, we got source now. I get that. I get the rest of it. But then I go, who created that? Who created source? I don't even know if there's such an answer, or if it's beyond our ability to understand.
Yes, it is actually beyond our ability to understand. If I was to say, for instance, that nobody created the source was always there. That is so beyond our way of trying to understand things, because we live in a world of things begin and end. So we think in terms of, who created this. But of course,
that's one of my many questions at 3:00 in the morning when I wake up. I'm just thinking, okay, I want an answer, but nobody answers me. So maybe one day I'll figure it out. But
there are a lot more questions before we get to that one.
there's so many. I mean, a lot of great information comes from your Rebel Angel series, and I think people have to look beyond that word rebel, because the connotation for rebel is trouble. And don't even forget to bring in the religious connotation. But if you go into that series with a total open mind, you'll see the series, it brings light to the world, which is part of part of the title. And I thought, yes, it really is very apt, because it removes one of the layers of amnesia.
Yes, a very deep one too. I think probably, you see, I think the move into realizing that we're living in an inhabited universe or multiverse, then brings the thought, well, if all planets are like this, how on earth is anything going on? Everything must be chaotic. So I think the idea that that we're an exceptional situation, and we are. I mean, there are other planets, I think 36 other planets that have been afflicted in the same way as we have. But in a universe where there are billions and trillions of planets, it's a relatively local affair. But if we want to talk a little more about that, I'm quite happy to.
Yeah, go on, because whatever you're putting out there is these little seeds for people to think on.
Yeah.
That's what I said. That's what I said in the beginning. It's steep. Go ahead. What we have, before the next cuddle.
Yeah, I think that people can tap in quite unexpectedly. A word or an idea will sort of hit home. Okay, so let's look at this business of, as you say, the rebel angels. And it depends if you're... I happen to be a rebel by nature.
Well, yeah, it sounded like that.
So I'm quite approving of them. Well, we'll put it this way. We're on our little section of the universe, right? It's called a sort of a local system. A local system is a system of 1,000 inhabited or to be inhabited planets, right? So we're kind of out there on the edge. The whole universe is much more sophisticated, much more developed, because they've been going on a lot longer than we have. But this level of organization on the internal level, on the angelic level, right, is the rebellion happened within that section, all right? So it was a couple of local administrative angels who basically took against what I've called multiverse administration. It's the sort of basic administration of the whole caboodle, right? And they, because we're kind of way out on the outside, and centralized governments never quite know what's going on, on the peripheries, they said, hey, wait a moment, you're telling us to do all this sort of stuff, but we can do a lot better because we're down here. We know what's going on. And so they sort of, they basically went into a rebellion on that basis. And the response from the multiverse was to say, okay, if you think you know better, here you are. Here's some planets. And go and mess with them. And that was about 203,000 years ago. And the messing has continued to this day. And, as I say, we're working our way out of it. But what is fascinating is that the angels who aligned themselves with the rebellion, right, what to do with them, Mm-hmm. And what seems to be occurring is that on these 37 planets that went into the rebellion, these angels are being incarnated into human bodies And this has been going on, I reckon, probably since Atlantis, maybe a little earlier. And in order to experience the environment that was the result of the choices they made, when they went into rebellion. I mean, it's a perfect kind of, it seems to be a very godly process, that one comes into a situation, in order to repair what one originally, dictated, possibly in ignorance, because I don't think the angels were very good at taking care of planets. I think, it's the standard to go by. I don't think it is a good job. But on the other hand, the rebel angels are, coming into incarnation. Some are doing good, some are not so great things in order to learn. But it's all contributing to this wave of change that we're experiencing that seems to be upsetting everything, all the apple carts. But of course, it's just because we're in the middle of it. And so when we're in the middle of it, of course, it's going to look difficult. Working through it.
Yeah, it's a matter, again, I find it fascinating. It's a matter, like, so I need another hour, but anyway, before the next break, the idea of the incarnating angels, because if we take out move away from what we've been programmed religiously, no matter what religious you follow, you look at angels incarnating into form, and like you said, a lot of the challenges, they're resolving within themselves. Doreen Virtue talks about human earth angels, and we'll get back to that in the next commercial.
Yes, fascinating.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com. and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting radio show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
Matt Connerton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connerton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connerton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
We're entering the last segment with Timothy Wyllie, and we've only touched upon things. I had brought up Doreen Virtue purposely because she's at the opposite end of the spectrum. She has a lot of her work has been embraced, and one of her books, Are You an Earth Angel?, many people have related to, because it's saying, oh, all the challenges and difficulties, and you're learning, to redeem yourself also, which really kind of confirms exactly the same thing that you're saying.
Yes. Yes. I don't know. I talked to Doreen over the phone. I don't know her work. I tend to avoid work that impinges on what I'm working on, simply to keep my own channel as clear as possible. But yes, you see, angels don't, as angels, they don't have very strong emotional bodies because they don't have the level of choice that we have. In fact, they're fairly choiceless creatures. They're created, they're functional beings. They're created for their functions. So when they come into incarnation, into physical incarnation, we come in with very weak emotional bodies, which is why we have, most of us have very difficult childhoods that we've had to struggle through in order to, toughen ourselves up in order just to survive here. I mean, I've come across ETs who literally, cannot be here, because of the emotional disturbances in the world mind, in the more sensitive areas. This is a very, very difficult place to be. In fact, the first extraterrestrials I came across, I think who came in, just after the Second World War, stayed here for 10 minutes. They had to leave after 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's even bringing up the ETs. I had a friend in the Netherlands who said Crusades walking, which has almost like this portal of information that comes through him of several ETs. And he is so sensitive to all the energy, whether it's light, whether it's people's energies. I mean, he just needs to isolate himself because he just cannot handle this earth plane.
The walk-ins I've come across, especially Orion walk-ins, I reckon take about 10 years to be able to, ground themselves. And they all, the ones I've come across, they get into drinking and eating meat and stuff like that. It's really quite horrible. And you think, my goodness, this is a walk-in. But yeah, I mean, that's all part of, becoming human.
And it's becoming human. That's interesting in itself. That brings us back to our originals forms. We're non-humans, which is kind of eye-opening in a way. Because, when you're here and you think, okay, this is what I am.
Yes.
And it expands your mind. And, I mean, we've moved up a little bit. Like I said, people are accepting we're spirit and form. But let's move up one more step. Let's use the term of non-humans. Yes. And there's many non-human forms.
Yes. Yes. Well, there are. I think what we'll find is, there aren't that many, in 7-foot intelligent insects, for instance, because it's a family affair, essentially. On the deepest level, we're all sons or daughters of God. Mm-hmm. It is a family affair, and families like to recognize other families. So, we'll find most extraterrestrials are certainly bipedal, and most look either very much like us, or they're a little bit taller, or a little bit shorter, or a little bit wider, a little bit, but there is a familial resemblance that allows us to sort of have a family meeting in a sense. I mean, that's, once we get rid of all this sort of ridiculous, or they're coming to take us over, and, all the fears that are produced by armament industries interested in producing new weaponry. They're delightful.
I know at one of the interviews you had, which I like to end up on this show on, ultimately, when the families all come together, recognize their oneness, as you mentioned. We have the golden age. We understand each other. Everything is really great. Family reunion. We're all one heart. After that, what's next? We accomplished this, so then what's next?
Yes. I think when you say coming together, I think the coming together has to start internally, because we are divided beings, So we live in a divided world. We live in this world, where some things are hot or some things are cold or some things are up and some things are down. We have, a good aspect of us and we have the potential for being bad. And I think that once we bring that into balance, as individuals, and this is why it's an individual affair. It's not about social, socialization. It's not about groups. It's about individuals. And as we as individuals bring ourselves into balance, then those around us will bring themselves into balance, and the whole world ultimately brings itself into balance, and that's when we can basically treat each other.
I think that's an important point, because many people are afraid of that word oneness. They figure they lose their individuality. But as you say, I think you have brought up before that understanding your intuition, balancing your energies, this is ultimately maybe the most important lesson that we're striving for.
Yes, and as you say, trusting the intuition, because everything tries to persuade us, that we don't know. The experts know better. The teachers know better. It's coming into the realization, and of course, our intuition can deceive us as well if we have stuff inside us, that hasn't been dealt with. So it's really, it's a process of really bringing ourselves into alignment with our own highest natures.
Do you think that we're capable?
Absolutely. I mean, God knows, if I'm capable, anybody is.
Well, that's true. You're representative of the human family here. So if one can do it, the rest of us can do it. And I think that's why I wanted to bring out your work, so people can look at what is with clearer eyes. And like I say, you're an artist, and again, when I looked at your art, it's like wherever you concentrate, that flow of energy when you're creating, it is a lens. It is almost you're showing us a portal. Okay, what the Pleiades may look like, or what other parts. That's why I keep on saying to people, we're getting to the end of the show, to again repeat, please go to Timothy Wyllie's website. I mean, I know I pushed your website a lot, but there's so much information, and I just know we couldn't touch upon everything.
Well, it's been delightful, and I thank you so much for asking such good questions and allowing me to speak so openly.
I think it what people get to see that you're not scary. To feel the compassion in your voice, the knowledge, that's just, I consider you almost like a mentor. I've really opened my mind on things, and I'm still learning. So that's why I want other people to, have their chance to investigate themselves. If they're not ready, that's fine. But if you are ready, to please, check out his works and his books, because it's really, they're great. And I thank you, and I hope you'll come back, Timothy.
I'd love to.
And maybe we'll concentrate on one thing. This time I just wanted people to get a sense of you, who you are. Of course. So I'm ending, have a few minutes. Do you have any kind of message you want to tell people, to...
Yes, actually, one thing has been sort of concerning me over the last month or two, with these, terrible incidents that are happening all over the world. How do we respond to it? Now, I mean, obviously, we're open-hearted people, so our hearts go out to these incidents and the people who die and are injured in them. But I think what is important to really get to understand, and that is that is really kind of leaking energy out. And quite often what we do is we leak our energy out because we sympathize with something that's happening on the other side of the world, while something's happening in our own family that we're overlooking or ignoring. And I think that is an important sort of thing to realize at this particular point, that we can empathize with these situations and realize that everybody in there had chosen to be in there on the deepest level. I mean, we all, especially in matters of life and death, these are pre-programmed, if you like.
And unfortunately, like I said, the show's ending, but I'm glad you made that point, because again, it's a seed thought put out there for people to feel.
Yeah.
So I hope to have, I'll be contacting you again on many different times. And thanks again, Timothy.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes.